Hello, everyone. I'm Adrian Petterson, and I'm presenting on behalf of my co-authors, Paridhi Gupta, Divyani Motla, and Priyank Chandra. Ladange, Adange, Jeetange, or We Will Hold Our Ground, Fight and Win, was a slogan that resounded in the Indian capital, New Delhi, for more than a year, starting November 2020, as the Indian farmers' movement took on the central government. In June 2020, the Indian central government announced 3 agrarian acts that led door-to-door campaigns and strikes in various states of India. However, feeling unheard by both the government and the media, the movement shifted its base to the capital of New Delhi. At the helm of the decision-making were farmers' unions, and All India Kisan Sangharsh Coordination Committee, an umbrella organization consisting of nearly 400 farmers' organizations. The interactions between these various actors led to the formation of the Farmers Union Coalition, or the SKM, which became the primary decision-making body for the movement. Various other groups and individuals joined the movement. This would become one of the largest protest movements in Indian history, accompanied by solidarity protests internationally. Individuals and groups coalesced together to take upon the central government, which had enacted these laws, as well as the media houses, which were often neglecting the movement or misrepresenting them. In this research project, we study the farmers' movement and discuss the organizational structures and underlying technical infrastructures that allowed it to sustain itself. Our work adds to the scholarship on technology adoption and use in Global South contexts, especially literature that focuses on communities adapting to technologies to local conditions, often in pursuit of political goals in the face of powerful antagonistic actors. The paper answers 2 central questions. First, how do social movements, such as the farmers' movement, utilize ICTs successfully in the face of powerful antagonistic actors? And second, as designers of these technologies, what can we learn from social movements' use of ICTs and online spaces while strengthening efforts for social justice? We conducted semi-structured interviews with 20 participants from the movement belonging to the farmers' organizations, non-farmer organizations, and allies. Due to the sensitive nature of the research, precautions were taken to ensure the safety of our participants. The carefully anonymized transcripts were analyzed using a constructivist grounded theory methodology. With participants from various groups and geographical locations marching to Delhi, there was a need for coordination. A control room was set up in Delhi, which used WhatsApp, Zoom meetings, and phone calls to coordinate between the control room and various groups, as well as intra-group communication. The diagram shows the different groups and the networks of coordination. The movement was a large-scale community movement with participation from trade unions, student organizations, women's organizations, Dalit organizations, prominent personalities, transnational allies, all under the leadership of farmers. The numerical strength of participants was central in sustaining the widespread movement as they challenged the government's assertion that only a small number of farmers were protesting. The movement also saw the emergence of citizen journalists as an extension of voluntary solidarity, where several individuals not trained as journalists started reporting from the site. As movement comprised multiple groups, there were often exclusions produced and tackled within the movement. Especially visible were those on the lines of gender and caste. A strict decision was made by the SKM to collectivize under the central identity of a farmer and peacefully demand the repeal of the 3 laws and nothing further. It is important to stress that the farmers' movement was built around the shared grievances of the farmer, and articulations of other intersecting identities were neglected. This allowed for cohesion in the face of internal differences and external obstacles. Given the geographical scale of the movement, politically strong antagonists, and demands against state policy, the organizers utilized ICTs in multi-pronged ways to sustain the movement, as mediums of communication and coordination, as digital counterpublics, and as free spaces of alternate media production. WhatsApp was used for internal communication and coordination, organization, and creation of mobilization mechanisms. While there were existing WhatsApp groups belonging to participant organizations, new groups were created as the movement grew. Facebook was also used for direct communication to inform participants about actions to be undertaken. Participants recognized Twitter as a political space, and several voluntary groups such as Tractor to Twitter and Kisan Ekta Morcha, the official digital mouthpiece of the movement, were created. The handle was used as broadcasting source of one-way communication to relay the happenings and requirements of the movement, as well as to challenge anti-movement narratives to create political pressure. This was necessary as the participants felt they were either ignored by the media, which was at the side of the government, or the media grossly misrepresented them. The movement grew on its own media through the live function of social media applications like Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, and blogging sites. They also developed their own virtual and print newspaper called Trolley Times as an alternative to traditional national media. In November 2021, the Indian Prime Minister announced the withdrawal of the 3 Farm Acts, and in December 2021, the movement decided to end its occupation of the Delhi borders. The movement had successfully met its goal, with its strength lying in the effective use of ICTs as a means of democratic formalization of informal organizing, as a means of on-ground coordination, as identity-building spaces, and as counterpublics and spaces of solidarity and coalition. The broad identity group of farmers utilized their existing networks and gradually created new ones for mobilization and everyday organization. The long history of formal organization provided the movement with a robust online and offline ally network and leadership and prepared them for large-scale communication. The cohesion displayed by the movement was a consequence of what Delata terms organized informality. It is characterized by the presence of both informal networks and organizational structures. Organized informality is indicative of informal communities' ability to self-organize and create bottom-up institutions and structures that facilitate collaboration and coordination. Perceived misrepresentation and insufficient coverage led to the need for emancipatory journalism and creating an alternative media ecosystem. Younger social media savvy participants primarily drove these media ecosystems. The alternative media ecosystem was used to reject and subvert mainstream media narratives, unify the movement, and document the movement. These were important ways in which digital emancipatory media were created and used to dismantle opposing narratives and misrepresentation. This also led to the creation of public spaces for identity formation and solidarity between participants. These were important spaces where the boundaries of inclusion and exclusion, i.e., between those who belonged to the movement and those outside, were clearly mapped. We note that as designers, it is important to pay attention to these boundaries that display the interaction of various actors within the movement. In the case of the farmers' movement, a geographically distributed movement, enclave spaces were important. These were safe private spaces enabled by offline in-person meetings, messaging applications, and video teleconferencing software. These were non-anonymous spaces of negotiation shaped by a history of grassroots mobilization, which facilitated coalition building. The importance of these enclave spaces cannot be understated, as they support the creation of counterpublics that counter oppositional narratives through the centering of experiences of the participants and engaging with the wider public. Designers need to be aware of how the creation of such safe spaces can allow discourse between disparate groups. The focus here is not on expression for public consumption, but rather negotiation and coordination. Design spaces also need to be quasi-private to allow potential new participants to enter, while keeping those who are unwanted out. We hope that our study on the movement's organizational structures and underlying technical infrastructures opens up avenues for designers and researchers to co-design with activists, to help them bypass barriers like those faced by our participants and ease participation in social movements. We look forward to any questions and concerns.